I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to the Wednesday edition of Conversations with Al McFarlane. Today is Wednesday, May 11th, 2022. Pleased to have a colleague and a friend, an elder, a leader in community, Marvin Smith. He's the president of NAMC, National Association of Minority Contractors, Upper Midwest. And we've been talking off and on for years about how we work to advance the opportunities and successes, the revenue streams in Black and minority communities. Marvin, good to see you again. Welcome back to Conversations.
Thanks, Al. Thanks for having me.
Let's do this. It's always appropriate to do a grounding. So I'm going to have you give me NAMC 101. Talk about what the organization is, what its mission is, and how it strategically works toward fulfillment of its aims.
Okay, thanks, Al. That's kind of I'll give you a short version of a long answer. Basically, the NAMC was developed in 1969, by a number of African American men, some of them here, that basically said that we're just simply not getting our fair share of those federal and state contracts that are supposed to be awarded to minority contractors. Our chapter arrived here in 1984. And we've had numerous presidents, and as the current president, I'm standing on the shoulders of great leadership historically. Unfortunately, we still haven't gotten that ball over the proverbial line that says that there is equity, there is parity, there is inclusion, there is diversity when it comes to the federal and state contracts. And so our association, we're comprised of almost 40 members now, representing trades all the way from plumbers, carpenters, electricians, landscapers, masonry guys, and everything in between. Primarily African-American at this point, although we're making great strides in terms of being more inclusive and intentional with bringing in our Latino brothers, bringing in the African brothers into the fold as well. Reason being is that there's just so much opportunity, and sadly, I don't think right now we have the current number of contractors that can fill the void of the upcoming work. It looks to be real robust in the next 5, 7, 10 years in terms of the construction, trades, and opportunity. We serve as an advocate for minority contractors. So for instance, our first quarter of the year, my team met with the 7 commissioners of Hennepin County to talk about, what are the issues that face us when we look at the challenges of, let's say, project labor agreement, which is union language that says that you have to be in a union to work on this particular project. We know that, that is a fight that's been ongoing, but that's a fight worth having simply because, Al, it denies non-union shops like mine the opportunity to work on various projects. The biggest one being is that even though all of my kids went to public school, I'm a graduate of North High School, my company and my employees can't work in a public school system. Now, if you think about that, we've, been a lifelong resident of Hennepin County all my life, paid hundreds of thousands of dollars in property taxes over the years, and I can't work in a public school. And so that's those kinds of challenges that particular issue presents to us. And, we are still engaged in that fight, but we need to get over that hurdle. We also, Al, provide training and mentorship for new startups. The example I give you there is that right now, I think I helped set up about 6 or 7 new companies that are now part of our association, and they can fully expect that, we'll provide them the opportunity to get training, to get mentorship. And just as importantly, we want to put them in front of opportunity with the caveat that we are going to work with them so that they don't fail. And so we're going to steer them to, every conceivable free uh, uh, activity available to them, business related. We're going to tell them where the capital is. We're going to talk to them about how to get equipment, how to do bidding, estimating, talk to them about how important relationships are, and how to run a successful company. And I always remind the new startups that this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So if you think it's a get rich scheme where you quickly get in, it doesn't work like that. Most of our businesses have developed over time. We got people who've been in 30 years and, still face some of the same challenges that a new startup does. And so we know that the challenges are many. We know that in many ways they're really formidable, Al. But we got, in our association, we got some very powerful contractors. And our voice at this point is loud. Our voice is powerful. Our voice is being heard. And that speaks about what we expect will benefit our community at large as we provide pathways for young men and women who may not go to college, but will go to the trade schools, who will see that that is a pathway to a career and success. And so we're hoping to have that influence in that aspect of our community as well. So I'm excited about being president at this particular time. I'm excited about our membership is growing every day. I'm excited about the fact that we have made some amazing progress with regards to being able to increase opportunity for members in our association over the last year, 18 months. One example I give you is that, one of our contractors was able to get a nice piece of work from the North Point project. And if you go up there or had the opportunity to visit, you'll see that there are people of color, not only minority contractors from our association, but we're able to hire men and women from our community. And that's the bigger picture. That's why I'm excited about being in this position. That's why I'm excited about what the NAMC has the capability of doing. And so with that said, we are going to be but we're going to be most formidable. We're going to be more powerful if we can get the community to stand behind us, to understand what the challenges are, and to roll up their sleeves and get engaged with us. What we want to do is to give that kid the opportunity every morning to wake up and put on a hard hat and steel-toed shoes versus waking up every morning and putting on a Glock or AR-15. You know what I mean? And it's that simple. And when I meet with agencies, when I meet with the different individuals that can, in fact, aid in changing policy that allows our kids a different pathway, I remind them of that. You think about it. This society has no problems with spending $40,000 to $60,000 a year to lock up our kids, but you ask them to pay our kids $30 to $50 an hour, and you hear crickets. Our policy doesn't allow that. We can't do that. And then my question becomes, we don't have this pushback when you want to lock our kids up for a little bit of weed or a little bit of crack or a little bit of this or a little bit of that. But when we're talking about doing something that is hugely important, something that's hugely beneficial to our community that helps all of us, there's this reluctance to engage us in that level. And that, for the community, we should be outraged by that. We should have a problem with that. If you think about it, you spend $40,000 to $60,000 a year to lock them up. That's taxpayers' money. Well, if you give them a job making $40,000 to $50,000 to $60,000 a year, not only are we spending the money to lock them up, we're also getting taxes from them. And so, just a common sense approach. It baffles me, Al, that this is just a common sense approach, yet we find it extremely difficult to get the buy-in from the powers that be.
I'm sharing this program to my Facebook contacts as we speak, and I'm asking anybody that is joining us on Facebook or YouTube, please support us by doing the same. Like the channel if you're on YouTube, like either the Insight channel or the Black Press USA TV channel, and share it. Let people know about it. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter, same. Participate, support, like, and share. And if you want to be on the call, I've listed here on the screen the StreamYard address, and you certainly can join this conversation. My guest is Marvin Smith. He's president of the National Association of Minority Contractors of the Upper Midwest. And we're talking about the general business environment, the economic environment, the challenges, but also the great, great, great opportunity that is at hand right now. And Marvin, I hear in your voice a positivity that says there's a train about to leave the station,
Yes.
and we need to be on it. And there's nothing keeping us off of it besides ourselves at this moment. Am I overstating the case?
Oh, absolutely not, Al. The ideal that there is no work, there's no opportunities for our youth in terms of construction, that it simply is not true. Like I said, my goal is to develop 24 companies, minority companies, in the next 18 to 24 months, simply because I know even if we were able to accomplish that we're still going to be woefully short in terms of being able to be the recipient of the amount of work that's allocated for our community. You know, it's 6, 8, 10, 20%, sometimes 32% labor on a lot of projects. And if we don't get our act together, if we don't develop our contractors, if we don't develop our minority workforce, again, we're going to be left in the dust. The example that I'll use is, you know, they built a $1.2, $1.3 billion stadium in North Minneapolis, you know what I mean? And you can't find one Black contractor from our community that said that they were given enough of that project to where they were able to elevate and raise their company in terms of revenue and expansion.
You're talking about Target Field.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Twins
Then
Stadium.
they had the other ones too. So it was really a little, probably I think even more closer to 2 billion when you looked at all of the renovations that they did over in St. Paul, the Alliance, and was that the Alliance? But in any event, you know.
So what do we need to do to make sure that our businesses, our contractors, number one, are under consideration, that get, you know, whatever they need to do the job? I mean, what are the problems? In the past, big business would say, you know, if you can't afford the bond, if you don't have the capital resources to wait for 60, 90 days to get paid, that means you're out of the game right away. If a job is $1 million job or bigger, but the revenue doesn't flow until a 6-month out cycle, you've got 6 months of weekly payroll and material expenses. And if you don't have the pockets, the capital reserves to fund that production until your check comes in, you're out of the game. Is that part of the problem? Is that
That's a huge
part of what it has been?
Yeah, that's a huge part of the problem, Alan. I'm glad you brought that up, because I really would like to acknowledge, you know, what Hennepin County is doing. Hennepin County, you know, we meet with Hennepin County. We have for the last few years quarterly, and that meeting is just really for the NAMC. And what it was set up to do, Al, was number one, to hear our concerns, to voice those exact same things that you just articulated, that there are just humongous challenges for us in the construction trades. And so what Hennepin County does, and so I don't forget, they're our best and most supportive agency at this point. But what Hennepin County did was looked at all those issues, those 6 or 7 issues that you mentioned, and they created a model that says, okay, we can create a situation where we can get minority contractors to be the generals. Okay. Now think how significant that is. You're the general now. You're the Mortensen now. You're the Cross Anderson now. You know what I mean? That's a huge step, and that's a huge inroad toward business development. for our contractors. They also said that they will put these projects out, and if there's no need to do bonding, they will not put bonding in the language. That's huge. They also said we get the ideal.
Explain what bonding is, just for somebody.
What bonding is, you got a couple of different bondings. One is a performance bond, and what that is saying is that you got to put up like 5% of bonding. So if it's $100,000 job, you got to get bonding for to cover that $100,000 job. And basically, it costs money to do that. Number one. Number two, you also have to have the means to show that you can, in fact, pay that $100,000 if something did go awry. And so if we've been kind of on the low end of the totem pole, a lot of us haven't gotten there yet. You know what I mean? The big companies are there. They can bond, millions of dollars, and even they have limits to some degree. But for us, it's a challenge because, we've so systematically been denied opportunity to grow and expand and to create capital that it's another challenge for us. And so to remove that barrier is huge. You don't need bonding. Just make sure you get the work done. And, we all get that because we know that that's a huge plus for us in terms of being able to get that job and performing that job and execute and get paid. The other thing that they did was, to your point, was the fact that, we are the last ones to get paid. So oftentimes you hear the language with our contractors saying, I'm funding this project for the $1 billion general contractor. I won't use names, but the general contractor who we know probably sitting on $100 million liquid cash, right? But he or they will not pay us for 60 to 90 days when they can just simply cut us a check, right? Knowing, it's $50, $75, $100,000, they can just simply cut us a check, right? That's bridging us from one project to another. And so to your point, Hennepin County says we're going to do the quick pay. Get the job done, and we're going to get the quick pay. And I've had, a lot of my contractors say, we get the job done, and, no sooner do we put down the sawzall or finish sweeping up, we got a check in the mailbox. You know what I mean? And that's the way it should be. You know what I mean? Again, the system has so thoroughly and comprehensively been effective at denying us opportunity that, it's time that we have this ask. You know what I mean? You have to undo that which you created decades ago so that we can be successful now going forward. And so that's another thing that the NAMC does. And that's, people are starting to hear us. And the other part that I want to say about this, Al, is that we are insisting that MnDOT, MAC,
Metropolitan Air Force Commission,
City of St. Paul, Ramsey County, et cetera, adopt this same policy. Because what happens is our growth is exponentially greater once that happens. Our ability to grow and expand is exponentially far more likely than not. You know what I mean? It's these simple policy things that need to be changed. And that's what we do at the NAMC. You know what I mean? We're going to meet you eye to eye, face to face, and say, this doesn't work. This does. Tell us why you can't create this pathway for us. Because we know that Black contractors hire Black youth from the community. We use other Black contractors. And so this ideal, that we can spend $1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times in our community now becomes a reality as opposed to one and done. We're creating wealth, we're creating commerce, we're creating opportunity. So then what happens is now you start to see our kids not, like they say, throwing bricks at the penitentiary. You start seeing our kids saying, you know what, I'm going to work. After 4 or 5 years, you now start to see our kids look at buying assets like a home, starting their own business. You know what I mean? You then get to look at if you got people working for these wages in these families, if you add $2,000 a month, which is easy to do in terms of the family income, you're out of poverty in most cases. You know, stuff changes. And probably the biggest thing, Al, that happens if we can, you know, when we pull this off, I'm not going to say if, but when we pull this off, is that we change culture. We make it cool to work. You know, all of us old school, we knew having a job was cool. There's nowhere where we thought selling weed and robbing people was cool. We came from a generation of people who worked and valued work. We need to take the next 5, 17 years to create this culture that says work is cool. Walking around with your pants hanging down, smoking bud all day with a Glock in your pocket is a recipe for disaster. And we need to show and mirror this decision and this individual that's making it to this one that ain't. Because what happens is that individual that's making it, he's going to see the kids that I will never see, that you will never see, that adults will never see. But he interacts with that kid all the time. And he's going to do the heavy lifting in terms of bringing that kid over to this other side that talks about responsibility, discipline, productivity, the ability to put off immediate gratification, and the creation of opportunity and wealth individually, thus family, thus community.
You know, but it's not a question of us having failed to do that. It is a question of us having addressed or been challenged by systems that historically and continuously, pervasively blocked the path for opportunity for entrepreneurs from our community. That's not a fault of ours. It's a product of a structural arrangement that Absolutely. I call white supremacist, that intends to deny and devalue and actually fears Black success. You know, I'm reading this book. Let me pull it up and show it to you. I've been sharing it a few days here. It's called, what is it? I'm located here on my bookshelf. I can't put my hands on it right now, but it's, oh, here, nope, still not there. It's a book about the history of racism in Minnesota in particular. It's a book put out by the Minnesota Historical Society Press. So it's a reputable institution. The author is a history professor at, I think, University of Massachusetts, Lowell. I can't think of the name, but I usually have the book here right in front of me. And I remember the cover notes I refer to all the time. The notes say that this book explores this history of how Minnesota has tried to keep whites in Minnesota have tried to keep Blacks out and keep them down. The book is called, it's named Whiteness in Plain View. And It's an examination of a pattern and practice of public and private policy that has as its mission the denial of opportunity, the suppression, and the prevention of opportunity and ascendancy by Black people in Minnesota. And it goes back to the Dred Scott decision and the days when Blacks could move to Minnesota and expect that if they were in a free state, they could claim or sue for their freedom. But the Dred Scott decision voted against that, right? That you still could be enslaved if your owner moved back to a slaveholding state. And so it traces that experience and the experiences that free Blacks did have if they migrated to Minnesota from the South and from Chicago, often to Twin Cities, but as often as not to small towns. Fergus Falls, Goodhue County, all around the state, there were small, groups of, 5 and 10 families or larger sometimes. Sometimes there were complete settlements that came of a group that were sponsored to create a new life. And what they experienced in every location was the meanest, vilest white suppression And, I think one of the books I'm reading talks about the emergence of the Ku Klux Klan in Minnesota. And the zenith or the nadir of their presence was the murder of McGee and the two other brothers in Duluth, the hanging, the lynching of these black men, innocent black men, falsely accused, innocent, but lynched by a white lynch mob that stood around as if it was a festival. A mob riled up, much in the way the January 6th mob was riled up in Washington, D.C. And so we have this idea of Minnesota being a liberal, and progressive place, but the opposite is actually true, that's a deception that masks a system of exclusion that is in housing covenants, in education, in health, and in wealth creation. And the book says and shows how that system was not only in the culture of the state, but it was abetted, supported, engineered, maintained by not only private individuals and businesses, but by public institutions as well, the government.
Absolutely.
And they specifically say city, county, and state and federal level government policy abetted and maintained the suppression of Black people in Minnesota. And they say for sure that the things that happened were not one-off. It wasn't a question of one person being, a bad actor in Cloquet, Minnesota, and doing wrong to one Black family. They said, no, this is system-wide. This is the pattern and the practice, and the entire state has not reconciled itself. So, we've come through a very hostile environment, and I think you're right. I think it's important that we're looking at an opportunity, an arena of opportunity right now that hasn't existed like it has, but the opportunity in part derives from our persistence and our insistence and the quality work we've done, and that we have to keep telling ourselves and reminding ourselves of our victories with the expectation of growing and expanding our victories, creating wealth in our businesses and our families and our community. And as you said, figuring out ways to do business with each other that keeps money circulating in our communities.
Absolutely.
3, 4, 5, 6 times, as opposed to half of one time before the money leaves out to other communities. So, let me digress. I told you this story before, but maybe there's a fix here that you and I can look at and work on together. I know that, Marvin, like back in the 70s and 80s, Insight News and the other Black and minority media were getting legal notices from Metropolitan Airports Commission, MAC. I thought of this because you said MAC, right? And the legal notices were when they had construction for new runways and new hangars and new projects, and they were under a state or federal obligation to make sure they communicated these opportunities to Black and minority communities using Black media. What that boiled down to was that these legal ads would be a quarter page or half page, sometimes a full page ad. Back in those days, a half page ad would cost $1,000, and they might run one ad, two ads, three ads in one issue. And so $2,000, $3,000 meant, a great day for a small business like mine and other Black-owned media. Over a period of time, as NAMC was developing and growing, and this I'm sharing with you, came from Richard Copeland, rest in peace. He was a leader, one of the organizers. Richard Copeland, the founder of Copeland Trucking and also of Thor Construction Company. But Richard came to me and said, Al, the MAC asked us, told us that they were spending all this money in Black newspapers and minority newspapers, and if they didn't have to spend it with the Black newspapers for these legal notices, they could do things like help support the banquet for NAMC. And NAMC took the bait and cut the deal, cut Black newspapers out, took bread, off our table, took our payroll away in order to do a banquet.
Yeah.
And after it's all said and done, no more banquet and no advertising. We both lose. But that's how they do it all the time. So I say that to say, Marvin, what would it take for NAMC and Insight News, McFarlane Media, to go back to MAC and other agencies to say, look, you all have an obligation to communicate these opportunities, not only directly through mail and through social media, but also publicly through traditional media assets like Insight News, Spokesman Recorder, et cetera, and that has value in ensuring that people get the information about bid and work opportunity, but it also has the impact that you're talking about, Marvin. How do we cultivate an awareness of the arena of opportunity in the Black community? I might not be a contractor, but I'm reading this ad every week in Insight News, and I say, look, my 11-year-old nephew is handy with his hands. Maybe I should start thinking about how do we get him on a track in vocational training. So by the time he's 18 or 17, he can get internships. By the time he's 20, he can be working, making 50, 60 bucks an hour. By the time he's 25, he can own his own business and begin building intergenerational wealth for our family. How do we set the condition to change the game altogether so that that our people have a sense of equity, of genuine equity that's broad? It's not me versus you, or if I get it, you can't get it. That's what they posed to us before, but that's colonialism. That's classic colonialism and imperialism. We have to call it out and go back to them and undo the damage they've done. So I'm just throwing it out there. What can we do together?
Well, that's a hugely big question now, because when we discuss opportunities with MAC and airport commissions, it's really a downer, simply because they have been so very good at denying us contractors opportunity, in addition to denying you guys opportunity as well. And so
they succeeded and we lost.
Yes,
they won and we lost that battle so far anyway.
Exactly. But to your point, they're on our radar because they have goals. They have to do work with us, and we just haven't gotten there yet. But as you were talking, I would say, why is there not a panel of those representatives, Insight, minority contractors, where we could have this discussion? You know what I mean?
Okay.
Because I think, Al, like you said, we are in this position in history where we can leverage this opportunity. Unfortunately, it came because of Brother George Floyd's death.
Right.
But nonetheless, it's here.
And we owe it to him and the situation to act with a sense of commitment, passion, and fearlessness and intentionality. Yeah. Right.
We got maybe one or two contractors that actually is in our association that works regularly at the Airports Commission. So I got a front row seat to some of the issues that he says are prevalent there that deny us the opportunity that you had mentioned. Here's what I will say. As president of the NAMC, if you put together a panel with them, I would make sure that members of our association will also be a part of that panel. Just have this discussion, because that's the first thing that I think needs to happen, is that let's just have this discussion on if it ain't happening, why, and are you committed to resolving it? And then we go from there.
I actually developed and won a contract with the State Department of Administration that had two parts to it. It took me 5 years to develop it, and going through all the reasons why they couldn't do it and wouldn't do it. But finally, I found an ally inside the organization that walked the thing forward to the degree that he could. But the contract was supposed to be setting in motion that all of the state agencies would place bids in minority media. And we made sure to craft it along the lines you're talking about, so that it would be Black, Asian, Latino, Native American media reaching all these communities. Well, the sum result of the first round of the contract was $0, not one single ad about bids being placed and offered or presented those in our ethnic media so that our communities knew about it. So I want to revisit that now. The contract's been renewed. The focus of the renewal is on jobs, but even there, the state has not been placing ads in Insight News or other ethnic media saying that we have jobs available for your people. At the same time, they say we are aware that the demographics of the state are shifting quickly, and that if we don't cultivate the workforce that exists around us, because there's so many people timing out, the baby boomers are leaving, right? And so they're leaving a huge gap. And historically, as opposed to ensuring that those of us who are here, our children, our families, get those jobs, they import somebody from somewhere else, and we get kept out again. We keep getting locked out. But I think we have to address that. So yes, I will set up a panel, and I'd like to work with you. And I'll send this conversation over to MAC so they know we're having the conversation. That my intention is to have this conversation publicly and consistently until they deliver on both the promise and the intent of the law, which I think they're failing right now. I don't know.
$1 billion spend, Al. It's an ungodly amount of money, just like MnDOT. Mm-hmm. These are godly amounts of money. And like you said, we're not even a blip. We don't even register in most cases in the terms of dollars revenue generated by our participation. And this is where it's at for this community, for you people listening. This is where it's at. This ideal that there's not work for your son or daughter or grandson or granddaughter, it just isn't true. Like Al said, the demographics are changing. The white men are retiring. And everybody that knows anything knows that workforce has got to come from the BIPOC community. It's got to come from the communities of color. And, we need to have this real concerted and comprehensive effort to get our men and women on board with looking at the trades. We got Summit. Summit does amazing with hundreds and hundreds of these kids. You got Twin Cities Rise, you got the Network for Better Futures, you got DEED, you got the Urban League, you got tons and tons of places where these individuals are waiting. And as a community, we need to wrap our arms around all of these entities, bring them in and say, okay, what is the game plan to garner opportunity for members of this community? It has to be that intentional. We can't leave it up to chance, because this system's got hundreds and hundreds of years. The political might and the deviousness in their heart to once again deny us our just opportunity. And Al, you mentioned it. The ideal that this is individuals doing it? No. The government has always been complicit in denying us our opportunity. That's why they don't want to hear about critical race theory, because it talks about the systems that were created to maintain white supremacy. Unfortunately, we're still under white supremacy. An example I give you, Al, is that, with these state and federal jobs, when there's goals on it, the white contractors will come after us. They're nice and polite. The minute the goals are removed, you won't hear from them. They don't use us. Even though we may have done a good job, we may have done it cheaper than our white colleagues, quicker, with the same quality or better. If there's no goals on it, if they don't have to hire us, they don't. So what does that say? That says that this is still a very closed system, and we're going to do whatever we can to continue to deny you guys your opportunity to make a living in the state of Minnesota in the construction trades and beyond. And so we do need to rally the forces. We do need to get the community behind us. We do need to get everybody that understands that we're sitting on an enormous amount of opportunity and wealth. And it's incumbent upon us to figure out a way to go get it. And that's why I'm so excited about being the president, because I got some good ideas. We're making some inroads, but we are just a small entity in comparison to the bigger picture at large that needs to mobilize and go after it.
Marvin, I always ask my guests to share their personal stories, and you've got a great story to share. Let's talk about Marvin Smith and Bogart Construction. Talk about your path from being a student in North High, a neighborhood kid, and your drive, and the challenges, but the successes in creating your own business. Tell your story.
Well, I'll be quick with it. I'm a native Minnesotan, so I lived here 68 years, and I just kind of want to reflect back to what Al had said earlier when we looked at the systems, white supremacy in the 50s. For those of you newly arrived people, in the last 30, 40 years. Well, in the 50s, we couldn't go up on Broadway. People don't know that, but you get chased off Broadway. They had a movie theater up there. You go up there, we could go up there on Sunday, watch the movie. The minute that movie was over, we got right back down to DuPont and Fremont and Emerson, where we lived. Black folks couldn't live over Northeast. You got chased out of Northeast. Northeast was one of those sundown towns. You could not simply be over there. You got beat up, chased, harassed, whatever. And so growing up here, the good thing is that we all grew up together. We were all poor. We all got that. The other good thing is that there were men, there were women. We grew up in a village, and in so much as we didn't have a lot. In many ways, growing up, we had a lot more than the kids today have in terms of parents, adults that loved you, cared for you, taught you, mentored you, and nurtured you. That's what we needed, and that's what we got. Sometimes there wasn't food for a day or two. We didn't have hot water. There were issues, but you knew that there was always an adult that you had access to. Literally dozens of adults that you had access to. And unfortunately, I kind of got off track. I got strung out, was an addict, homeless, I went through all that and yada, yada, yada. And, it was the men that I spoke about earlier that came back around and said, hey, you're too valuable, you're too smart. We're taking you to treatment. And in so much as I rebelled against them, these cats said, no, you're going to treatment, and literally put me in a van and took me to treatment. And it seems like they stood outside the treatment center for a year to make sure that I didn't leave, because every time I got ready to leave, somehow these three brothers would show up and say, man, you ain't going nowhere. But that was the kind of tough love that we were able to exert on our kids. And that's why, a lot of us, even though we may have gotten off track, we were able to get back on track because it was that parental adult supervision resources that allowed us the opportunity to take a different path. Even though we may have chose a bad path at one point, we were able to get back on track with a lot of support, a lot of love, a lot of nurturing. I started my business 15 years ago. And I started it because, I just felt that part of it was, if you guys think about it, people can come here and don't speak English and they start a business, right? People come here with a quarter and somehow they figure out how to start a business. And I just said, how is it that we don't have commerce? For instance, why do I have to go get my hair products from a non-Black person up on West Broadway? Mm-hmm. Why do I have to go buy soul food from a non-Black person up on West Broadway? And on and on and on. And I just said, this just doesn't make sense. And so, I started my company, and, we had our ups and downs, there's always issues. But as I speak with you today, our company is thriving. Our company is doing well. We've been able to hire, last I count was about 230 people from the Black community on and off. If it was a day's worth of work or a week or a year, we've had over 230, 240 different people over the last 15 years that we've been in business. And again, we're doing well. And I hope to be able to utilize the NAMC to strengthen Bogar, so that those two entities, along with the other 30 or 40 contractors in the association, can see a huge growth in terms of revenue and opportunity for us as contractors and us as a community. I feel blessed, Al. I feel blessed to be a Black man in this community. I came under the best leadership that the community had to offer in terms of, Spike Moss, who I've known since the 50s. I've been a student of Mahmoud Agate since the early 60s. You know what I mean? And I can just
he's getting a honorary doctorate this Saturday at McAllister
Yes.
College. Yeah.
Yes. I had the opportunity to work with Brother Keith Ellison as we organized the Million Man March out of here at Mahmoud's Harvest Prep School. You know what I mean? And there was Randy Stanton, who, no longer with us, and other brothers as well, Milford and, just Bill English, cats that allowed me, they were a little older than me, but these guys allowed me to be in their company and just further develop, some leadership skills to further enhance my passion for this community, and to, currently, those people still support me in this position as a president of the NAMC. So I got a lot of support, and I want to say this, and I don't say it from a pompous, arrogant position, but I am going to be successful as president of the NAMC, and I want this community to hold me accountable. I told you I'm looking in the next 18 months to have 24 new startups. Ask me, you see me at Target or the mall, say, hey, how we doing with that? Ask me, hold me accountable, because if people know me, they know that I've been a pain in the butt for a lot of the nonprofits, a lot of the people that, are getting money on behalf of this community and not doing anything. And now I'm in that position, not that I'm getting paid for this position, but I took the position with the same charter to help and improve this community. And I asked you, I beg you, hold me accountable.
Well, let's take it one step further. Let's figure out how we can make sure that you come back once a month at least, or more often. And when you do, bring some businesses with you. Why don't we use this format, this platform, to introduce the new businesses and existing members as well. Marvin, this has been, as always, a wonderful conversation. Thank you for all that you do, for telling and sharing the story and the hope and the aspirations and the intentionality, the intention that you've set forth for yourself and for the community. And thank you for the commitment to both transparency and accountability. I think that's how we have to lead, with accountability and with being truthful, being transparent. I think you're doing that, and I appreciate you for being that way. Any final words, any events coming up in the next few days that you want people to be aware of?
Thanks, Al. We have our monthly members meeting at the Year Center every third Thursday of the month. Second Thursday. So our meeting is tomorrow from 2:30 to like 5. We invite everybody just to come in and see what we're doing, what we're talking about. Tomorrow's agenda is a really a good, robust agenda, in that we're going to have contractors coming in that are non-union contractors that have made a commitment that they want to reach into our communities to find tradespeople to work and perform on projects that they currently have and projects that they are coming up in the future. And so, if you are a contractor of sorts and, you don't have any of your certifications, that you're planning, a smaller space and like to expand and grow and learn and to figure out how to run a successful business, definitely feel free to come to the meeting tomorrow. We have refreshments and stuff like that. It'll be well worth your time. You'll meet some people that can aid you in your efforts to grow and become successful.
Maybe we can stream some of the proceedings tomorrow. So we'll talk after this show, Marvin.
Okay.
If there's an opportunity to share that across this platform, I think this platform is unique because it lets you It's like cinema verite, cinema real, where you can go real time on what's going on in
Yes.
the community. And that's something that we can consider maybe doing tomorrow as well. Brother, thank you so much. I'm going to call you back after the show and got some more business for you. We'll talk to you. I'm Al McFarlane.
Thank you.
This is Conversations with Al McFarlane. Thanks to my guest, Marvin Smith, President of National Association of Minority Contractors, Upper Midwest, and President, owner of Bogart Construction Company. Join me again tomorrow for the next conversation. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.